I can't see into this game well. Environmentalism isn't heaven or hell or the supernatural vision this PS5 game appears to suggest from visuals and graphics on 4K TV. You do get some very scary creatures here, and it's a bit humorous with fear upon eyes. The camera angles get jumpy. Even picking up a poster leaves a big dent on the fun factor, if there even is one. Then again, survival in real life is more obvious, and way less troublesome on equipment. Subnautica Below Zero isn't a great game for the PlayStation 5 in terms of guides and instructions. I'm given a little survival knife in the beginning of the game and must search for wonders of biology and chemistry. And with this little nugget, I go into the world and discover a huge giant monster before running away. That's not a good survival method, my friend. You do get better with tools and weapons down the road, if you could wait for a million years. However, from the beginning, you must find your way, and it's less like a game and more like travel and exploration. When I go outside my house and pick up a rock, I'm not playing a game, yet with Subnautica Below Zero, you're expected to believe it's a game for doing such a thing. You have to pick up lots of rocks, minerals, chemicals, and general goods in the name of science. For science, I don't have enough instructions and guides, so I end up messing around with my PS5 controller and TV. The game leading me into fishing mechanics and wild elements of surprise. My character picks up rocks and other scientific objects by throwing them away, and by the PS5 game into the fiction? Rocks and other scientific objects shrink into unknown visuals until I have more equipment out of vital resources. Maximum freedom is a phrase the PS5 game can change, and I believe such an illusion of sport hearts. The challenge is within reason of doubt. Super Mario 64 was a great game with excellent instructions and a quality guide. Subnautica Below Zero is a downgrade in terms of learning, understanding, and educational management. Consider the vocabulary in the PS5 game. Do you know what the vocabulary even means? I don't understand the vocabulary, and I don't think the game knows, by the way. My home theater system does wonders. However, Subnautica Below Zero puts a lot of script and conversation between characters, or idiots, right on my PS5 controller, and I have to hold the PS5 controller up to my head to hear anything. And it's difficult to listen from the low volume and the acting cast's lack of confidence. You will get false images of exploration, even. For example, I experienced an attack by an underwater fish bomb and receive a dent on my field of vision, although there's little to no explanation about field of vision in the first place, and the dent or crack on the window goes away just because. I guess there is a wonderful, magical Swedish fish down underwater somewhere. Who knows? The game keeps lots of information hidden from view, and I must either make a lousy case or just keep fishing in a wonderful blindfold, if you can think about it in an imaginary sense. Entering or walking into any tiny little ship is crazy. The camera angles move around and jump around with such vibrations and shakes that it looks like an earthquake is taking place, even though I'm supposed to be simply walking in the ship from room to room. Gosh, that's an everyday thing. I mean, come on. There's no earthquake just because I'm picking up a box of crackers or something. Give me a break. There's a survival mode in Subnautica below zero, but due to the nature of the game, you will die really quickly unless you so happen to make the right guesses and become psychotic and bewildered. My PlayStation 5 does provide interesting visuals with a share of horror and in-game energy, but I'm looking for a PS5 game that could be more like my tour guide. You know, like I need like a real person to help me. You know, the problem with robots is that they download. They do not help. They just download. You know, I don't want to turn on the PS5 game only for my character to get dumped on a lost planet with few natural resources. I mean, a real NASA program would not even start a mission like that. It's not fun, and the survival mode is a big question mark. So what's my rating? Well, if you're patient enough, you'll probably give it a couple stars somewhere. But let me ask you this. Is that enough for you? I mean, is a couple stars really enough for you? You know, they may just seem like stars. You know, stars is rating for a game. Like maybe a game that's like 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 or something. But it's like over time, you're missing a lot of stars, huh? When there's more and more of those kinds of partially complete games and such. And it's like, well, it gets to the point that eventually you just have to say, I have to get to the galaxy for my purpose. I cannot just get a couple stars every time, you know? Like, you know, it would be better to like, you know, like to receive the universe in our wonderful imaginations instead of just, you know, like picking stars like they're like nuts and bolts on the ground, you know, like, oh, here's a star, here's a star. And definitely this game is like one of those games where it's like, it doesn't really feel like exploration. It really doesn't. Especially with my descriptions there. Just in case you do not understand the dialect of the language that I was having years ago, when I'm basically arguing in this review is that the game tries to use a lot of fancy talk and hocus pocus nonsense to make it seem like there's some kind of tension or aggression or even more like behavior somewhere when really it's more like some weaponless or pathetic warrior getting quickly defeated by an equally pathetic predator that hardly even appears in the game. And and I mean, and I was playing this game for like usually over 15 hours, and there was like little to no progress. And I think a mistake that they made with the game was like they were assuming that like I would have this kind of intelligence level from the beginning, and that I would be able to get to the cookie jar really quickly when they're ignorant of how big my feet were and how long the distance was and how much capacity my mind actually has. And so for this reason, if you're someone who is like really, really intellectual, you could probably give this game like, you know, a couple more stars. But even then, I think you would still find it disappointing because it's just simply a bad idea to begin a game with like some kind of like pretentious scarcity issue. Because the fact is, well, if a ship was not prepared for such an emergency, it shouldn't even be in space. I mean, already you know that NASA does keep an eye on spaceships, and you know that like they make sure that no emergency happens to result in this kind of thing where it's like, oh, I only have a little pocket knife and I'm facing a big, gigantic polar bear dinosaur on Mars. You know, they would know to prevent that kind of situation because, well, they have equipment when they go out and they prepare long ahead of time. And this game tries to make it seem like it's serious when it's more stupid than serious. I mean, you cannot, as a space warrior going out in space, you cannot really say that you have a serious attitude when you have like a pocket knife thing and very useless and pathetic materials in your ship, and you end up throwing a lot of them away as if like there's some kind of a global warming crisis on a planet far away or something already. I mean, that's unrealistic and impossible in terms of modern science today. And sometimes there are those kinds of artists who make the mistake of believing that creating art just simply means lying and making up bullshit. Well, no, that's not what it means. I mean, good art, as in real art, invites you to understand the truth with reasonable metaphors, reasonable symbols, reasonable fiction, reasonable lies. You know, it cannot be the kinds of lies where it's like, it's so unbelievable and ridiculous and nonsensical that even a child will not believe it. You know, like, yeah, you know. Like, there's a difference between, you know, telling a really good story about, you know, Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears and then just contaminating your work of literature or video game or story by being careless about how ugly and foolish you look in front of the audience, you know, when you tell the story. I mean, you know, you have to know when it's better to be smart instead of just some dumb guy on a dumb phone somewhere. Anyways, this game, it's not a very good adventure. Try something else. Take care. Have a good one.